I wonder just how many of these privilege videos BuzzFeed did. Whether they isolated and focused on individual countries, all the while portraying it as a wider world view, vaguely of course, or whether they just pumped these out for all their different YouTube channels in the vain hope that one slips through the cracks without any criticism. Well, if I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be getting a sandwich.
Here's how you make a proper fucking sandwich. First, you get your sheep. Then, you remove its heart, lungs, liver and stomach. Next, you mince the heart, lungs and liver with onion, oatmeal, suet, spices, salt, mix it with stock, then boil it in the animal's stomach. Next, there's your brown breed. Nay, greens are my fucking haggis.
Well, thanks to Tailed Feature, I'm as ready as I'll ever be for BuzzFeed, so take it away.
Some people are born into families where they have to walk miles just to get water. All I have to do is turn on a faucet. That's privilege.
I do have to agree that it is a privilege that you have over somebody else, that you don't have to go the extra mile or many, many miles to obtain water. That, however, is a privilege that has been earned from your nation's development. Yes, nations where those are unable to obtain water easily is mostly due to the fact that their lands are barren, desolate wastelands, and therefore they are not as developed as a consequence. But I do believe this particular privilege is not going to relate well to others mentioned later on when you all line up and step forward or back. In a vain attempt to avoid repeating myself from the first BuzzFeed privilege video, I'm going to say privilege is a word that is starting to lose all meaning because it is being misused much like the word Nazi.
If you have ever tried to change your speech, if you were embarrassed about your clothes or house, if you would never think twice about calling the police when trouble is.
Notice that while the Australian version of this video had emphasis at this stage on diversity, or the diverse group being presented, this does not. This to me indicates that the video is going to be a far more general approach, rather than something more specific like Australia, which even then is still fairly general.
I think privilege is when some people have some things and other people don't have things.
If that segment was scripted, that makes the man speaking sound like a pouty child in a toy store.
I feel privilege is something that you don't even really have control over.
I think it'd be silly for me to say I don't have a fair amount of privilege, considering like the country I live in and the job I get to do and the college I was allowed to go to.
Before I address remarks in that particular segment, I've just realised I have another definition for privilege. A word used to guilt others into feeling like they should give up what they have because what they have wasn't earned even if it was earned. Now, to quickly touch on the second lady that spoke and gave 3 examples of her privilege. The first one, I don't think it's so much a privilege where you were born. I think you're just lucky that particular sperm won the race that created you. Luck. The second one, job. Earned. Unless, of course, you got in by affirmative action. And the same applies to college. You may have gotten to go there. Did you earn the spot? Did the college in question accept you on merit?
I suppose being a white male will help me end up somewhere towards the front, but I'll take a few steps back from being gay.
On a list I just made up of things I just don't care about, your skin colour and your sexuality are very high up, along with your name. Now, in part, that could be due to the company you are making a video with. But it's also because I don't see them as relevant factors when treating you as an individual, on merit of your actions.
If your parents work nights and weekends to support your family, take one step back.
Much like before, I'm going to address this question differently, because this one is reliant on an individual experience. While it can indicate a trend, the trend being in North America is far too large to truly condense down into something concrete. And as we know, this is most likely going to be used to highlight racial differences, gender differences, something which cannot truly be represented with that question, or that particular type of question.
If you can show affection for your romantic partner in public without fear of ridicule or violence, take one step forward.
It's interesting to note that a white gay man that spoke earlier and the black woman at the back didn't come forward. Everyone participating in this little privilege test should be allowed to come forward. Now, of course, there are individual circumstances and locations, but I'm not going to make excuses for equality or why there is a lack of it that would make them feel like they can't. That said, yet again, this is only really representative of the individual and not of any demographic they may be there to represent.
If you were embarrassed about your clothes or house while growing up, take one step back. If you have ever been diagnosed as having a physical or mental illness or disability, take one step back.
Again, I take issue with the type of questioning being used in this video, in these questions for the questionnaire themselves. The first one, for example, is dependent on feelings. The second is dependent on a medical diagnosis, neither of which can just be pinned to a group of peoples.
If you have ever been bullied or made fun of based on something you can't change, take one step back.
I'm starting to find it harder and harder to find someone that wasn't bullied at school for the smallest of things. I, for example, could not change that my family were poor. I could not change that I was short up until the age of 15. I could not change that my mother thought it would be such a great idea to buzz cut my hair with a number 2 in the winter, making my ears glow like Rudolph's nose during a good storm.
If you get time off for your religious holidays, take one step forward.
I would like to offer a small addition to that question. If you are allowed to freely practice your holiday and take time off work from it, and you do, but not to celebrate that holiday, but to instead go and get wrecked in another area of the world, take one step forward.
If you came from a supportive family environment, if you can see a doctor whenever you feel the need, if you are able to move through the world without fear of sexual assault, if you took out loans for your education, if there were more than 50 books in your house growing up.
Now, much like before, I am actually quite excited to see how far forward the white man is, because let's face it, he's going to be at the front anyway. But I am keen to see how close he is to others.
So these are your final positions.
It really is incredible just how far away that black woman is. Now, rather than continuing the video where we go through all those people's individual experiences and how they feel and how it impacts society and blah 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 blah, in the description to their video and now my video, the questions they ask, which we only hear a few of, are linked. In an unlisted stream with Otterface, I go through those questions with her help to try and ascertain certain privileges. The full version of that is unlisted on the Cthulhukin and Friend Show, my other channel. It is linked below. You're welcome to listen to it. It's only 44 minutes long, and I'm going to play a clip of that right now. If your parents worked nights and weekends to support your family, take one step back. Now, before you answer, this obviously does imply some trends in race and gender, implying classes, but with America, and this being something applicable to America, it's far too broad, and I don't see it being something you can use to represent privilege in the way they want it to.
Yeah. I probably
What do you think?
I know that I would certainly step back.
Yeah, so my mother worked 4 jobs, and yeah, she struggled. We still ate, fake Weetabix with warm water and salt.
No, I mean, in my younger years, I'd step back, but like, if they asked me now, though, I'd probably step forward because my parents are a bit.
Oh, no. The question didn't say take step forward. If it says specifically take one step back, if it applies, but if it doesn't apply to you, you just stay where you are.
Okay, so because it changes, I'll probably because it's changed throughout my development, I'll probably stay where I am.
Okay, next. If you are able to move through the world without fear of sexual assault, take one step forward. Again, I think this is a loaded thing because it doesn't, in most of the Western countries, it doesn't recognize men as being victims of sexual assault.
And again, there's plenty of women who don't feel, afraid to do that because they're prepared to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, I'd probably step forward because I at least have some idea of what to do.
But it says moving through the world. Of course, different cultures are going to behave differently around a Cthulhukin and an otter. Next, if you can show affection for your romantic partner in public without fear of ridicule or violence, take one step forward.
Well, the thing with me, when it comes to like otters and all that, like regardless of whether it's straight or gay or whatever, like otter relationships are forbidden. So I'd have to take a step back.
Right. For me, I've only ever seen people like ridicule is a feeling thing, and if you take offense to that kind of crap, you've got your own problems.
Yeah.
But violence, to me, when I hear about that, the only times I've ever seen it with romantic partners is usually a specific faith mingling with somebody who is not of the same faith.
Yeah, you're right. I think this is really depending on the society as well. I think probably someone would, or just depending on where you are, because I'd imagine a gay couple would probably be much more comfortable holding hands walking through a high street in England than through like probably a place in Saudi Arabia or something. So I think it probably depends on
somewhere in one of the very rural areas of Sweden.
Yeah.
This is being used in America, and while because America's such a large country, there are very big cultural differences, even state and county level.
Yeah, and you have more like liberal places, like even like in Texas, which is a rather, a red sort of state.
It's a red state. It is.
You have like places that are more liberal. So I think it's Austin that's like the liberal part of Texas, and then there's Dallas, which is like the total opposite of that. I could be wrong with the Dallas thing.
It's okay. They can cut it off. We'll do the next one. If the primary language spoken in your household growing up was not English, take one step back. I said fuck off when I first read that. I don't think language is a privilege.
Yeah.
I don't see how it can really be used to ascertain one's privilege.
It seems, I don't know, I guess I can see where they're coming from. Like the whole like, English being like a very common language, I guess, throughout the West, like it's a very important language you want to get through, but it almost seems like they're shitting on their own language in a way. I mean, I would be very proud if I was able to, if I came from a background that had like a different language in it, but that's maybe that's me just looking too much into it.
Okay.